Daniel's meat was soft, sweet, and very cheap, but money wasn't what it really cost. So what was he truly selling, and who was paying the real price? My name is Obiaku. I was born and raised in this quiet village of Amaife. It all started small. One day, a young man with sharp eyes, fine skin, and quiet steps opened a small meat shed right at the corner of the village market. He was not from Amaife. People say he came from Umuzegwu, or one of those far places. Nobody knew his parents, and he never spoke much. He just called himself Daniel, and he sold meat, very soft meat. From the first day, everybody could tell there was something different about Daniel's meat. It wasn't just fresh. It was soft, so soft that even old women with missing teeth could chew it easily. And his price? You would think he was doing a giveaway. While other butchers sold beef for 2,000 naira per kilo, Daniel sold his for 1,200. And not just any part of the meat, sold ribs, liver, heart, even soft bone, all at the same price. People stopped going to Emeka, the old butcher, who had been in the market for over 25 years. They stopped going to Auntie Nwakayego, who sold cow legs beside the pepper sellers. All roads led to Daniel's stall. At first, the butchers complained. Emeka called a meeting. "That boy is using jazz," he said. "He is trying to destroy our business. We must chase him out." But the market leaders refused. "Is it not a free market?" said Chief Okoli, the chairman. "Is he forcing anybody to buy? If his meat is soft, then it is soft. Go and learn from him." That was how Daniel remained in the market, quietly selling his cheap, tender meat every morning. But that was also when strange things started happening. One night, around 2 a.m., Nwokeji, the village night guard, said he saw Daniel walking along the bush path near the cemetery. He said Daniel was carrying a sack, and the sack looked heavy. He greeted him, but Daniel didn't answer. He just kept walking. Another day, Mama Ofun, who fetched water early in the morning, said she heard a cow crying from Daniel's compound. But when she peeped through the zinc fence, she saw no cow. Instead, she saw Daniel sharpening his knife and whistling. "I swear, I heard a cow," she said, "but I saw nothing." Even more strange, nobody ever saw Daniel go to the main slaughterhouse where others went. Emeka and the rest would bring in cows from far villages. You would see them early in the morning washing the meat, cutting, sweating, and struggling. But Daniel? He would just appear by 6 a.m. with his table already loaded. No truck, no cow dung, no blood trail, nothing. The people were confused. Maybe he slaughters at night, some said. Maybe he knows a secret place, others guessed. But only one person asked the real question: where exactly is he getting this meat from? There was one woman in Amaif who never liked Daniel from the very beginning. Her name was Mama Ifeoma. She was the oldest woman in the village and had seen many things in her time. She had also been married to a butcher in her younger years, and she understood meat. According to her, meat had texture, and Daniel's own was not normal. "This meat is too soft," she told her neighbors. "Too clean. Even goat meat is not this soft. There's something wrong somewhere." Nobody listened. They called her jealous, old, and bitter. One day, her daughter-in-law brought Daniel's meat home. "What is this?" Mama Ifeoma asked. "Meat, Mama, from Daniel's place. Very sweet." Mama Ifeoma refused to touch it. She stood up, went outside, and threw the meat away. "Better to die hungry," she said, "than to eat what I don't understand." The younger women laughed at her. "Old people and their wahala." But Mama Ifioma kept warning them, and when the sickness started, she was the first to shout, "Did I not tell you people?" It started with a child little Obi who lived near the river. He ate Daniel's meat in okra soup and started vomiting at night. His belly swelled. His tongue became dry. They rushed him to the health center. Then it was Adana, a trader who bought 5 kilos from Daniel and cooked pepper soup for her family. She and her husband began to complain of serious stomach cramps. They were rushed to the general hospital in Ogwashi. Within 2 weeks, more than 11 people fell sick. Doctors said it was food poisoning, but they couldn't trace the exact cause. All the people affected had one thing in common. They all bought meat from Daniel. The village council held a meeting. "Should we ask him to leave?" the youth leader asked. But Daniel came to the meeting himself. He stood up, wore a calm face, and said, "I do not poison meat. I eat the same thing I sell. If anyone is sick, it is not from my table." And with that, he walked away. That was when Obina, a restless and stubborn teenager, decided to investigate on his own. Obina was only 17, but his eyes were sharp. He always wanted to be a journalist, and he said Daniel's story would be his first big case. He told no one, not even his mother. One evening, he hid behind the palm trees behind Daniel's compound, just beside the cemetery. He brought biscuits and a bottle of water. He had told his mother he was sleeping over at a friend's place. Around 1 a.m., he saw movement. Daniel stepped out of his compound, carrying something that looked like a white sack. Obina followed him slowly, barefoot, holding his breath. He followed him into the bush path that led to the abandoned part of the village cemetery, old one that nobody used anymore. What Obina saw that night, he never remained the same. Daniel walked into the middle of the abandoned graveyard. Obina lay flat behind a termite hill and watched. Daniel dug. Yes. With his bare hands and a small hoe, he dug up the soft, red sand over one of the graves. Obina's eyes widened. Daniel's white shirt was covered in sweat. The moon shone directly on him. Then, finally, he pulled out a sack from the ground. It wasn't cow meat. It wasn't goat meat. It was a human leg. Obina's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He watched as Daniel calmly tied it up, wiped his forehead, and walked back toward the bush. Obina stayed hidden until Daniel was long gone. Then he ran. He didn't stop running until he reached the village square. The next morning, the entire village gathered at the square after the town crier beat the Ikoro drum. Obina stood before the elders, his mother crying beside him, begging him not to say anything that would bring a curse. But Obina was not afraid. He told them everything. What he saw, what Daniel did, the leg, the grave, the digging, the sack. The village went silent. Chief Okoli stood up and said, "This matter is bigger than us. We must see it with our own eyes." So, before noon, a group of elders, youths, and 2 police officers followed Obina to the graveyard. They found the shallow grave. They dug, and just like Obina said, they found human remains, half-eaten, wrapped in Daniel's signature white sacks. They broke into Daniel's compound. He was gone, but his freezer? full. Inside Daniel's small room, they found a deep freezer with 5 large compartments. When they opened it, flies poured out like smoke. Inside were piles of meat wrapped in nylon. But deeper down were things no one could explain. A small human hand, still wearing a baby bracelet. A man's arm, complete with a wristwatch. A jawbone. 2 pairs of human feet, cleanly chopped. Women screamed. Men staggered. The police officers covered their noses. Chief Okoli fell to the ground and shouted, "He was feeding us human flesh!" After that freezer was opened, the entire village fell into confusion. People began to scream and vomit. Some fainted. Others tore off their clothes and rolled in the sand. A few ran home to throw away every last piece of meat they had in their pots, fridges, and even in their stomachs. Some wept loudly. "I cooked his meat for my baby," one woman shouted, pulling her wrapper. "I served it to my pastor," another screamed, banging her head on the ground. Nobody knew who had eaten what or who they had eaten. Chief Okoli called the district police. They cordoned off the house and sealed the meat shop. Nobody wanted to touch anything. Not even the police were bold enough to open all the freezer compartments. What they had seen was already enough to destroy a village's peace. By evening, a rumor spread that some of the meat in Daniel's freezer had tribal marks, and that one of the legs matched a young boy who had gone missing last year in the neighboring village of Akpara. That was when people started suspecting the worst. Daniel had been butchering human sand, not just dead ones, as if a veil had been removed. Villagers began to remember people who had disappeared quietly over the last 2 years. "Do you remember Eckham?" someone asked. "The cripple who begged near the church? He disappeared last year. What of the mad woman with a baby? What was her name again? Agatha. The old man who used to drink palm wine beside the mechanic's shop. Ugo Chukwu." Faces, names, memories, all returning like whispers in the wind. Nobody had noticed before. These were the poor, the voiceless, the wanderers who had no family to cry out when they were missing. But now everything pointed to one man, Daniel, and Daniel was gone. That night, the local vigilante group, led by Uche the hunter, followed a trail behind Daniel's compound that led into the thick forest. They were determined to catch him before he vanished for good. They moved with machetes, guns, and a local priest who tied charms around their waists. Deep in the bush, they found strange things. A small hut made of red cloth and animal skin, a black pot filled with bones and feathers, a shrine with a mirror facing a carved skull, and on the ground, written with white chalk, "He who feeds the hungry shall never lack." The priest trembled. This is not ordinary. He was using spiritual sacrifice to keep the meat soft. They searched all night, but found no trace of Daniel. No footprints, no sound, no scent. It was like he had disappeared into the wind. But inside the shrine, behind a curtain made of cow tails, they found something chilling. A black Buka diary written by Daniel. Daniel's handwriting was neat and straight. The diary had no cover title, just a name inside the first page, "To the one who taught me." Each entry was short but haunting. The 17th of March. First trial successful. Meat from a madman, very soft. May 2nd. Little girl near river. Took 2 thighs, thankful to the night spirit. The 29th of July. They keep buying. They do not question. Hunger makes people blind. The 10th of October. The softest meat comes from sorrow. The bones of the broken taste the sweetest. The last entry read, "They will find me, but I have fed them, and they are no longer clean." The priest closed the book and said, "This is bigger than meat. This man is not just a butcher. He is a servant of something evil." Life in Amaife changed completely. People stopped eating meat altogether. Even fish sellers were affected. Who had the strength to chew after what they saw? The market closed for a whole week. The elders called a purification ceremony. The chief priest killed 2 white goats and sprayed their blood across the market square to cleanse the land. Women bathed with salt water and lime. Men fasted for 3 days. But fear had already taken root. Pregnant women started having nightmares. A woman named Ijeoma swore she saw Daniel smiling in her backyard at midnight. Children cried at night, saying a man was calling them from the trees. And worst of all, the sickness didn't stop. 3 more people died, even after throwing away the meat. Their bellies swelled like drums. Their eyes turned pale. The local doctor said he had never seen anything like it. It was almost as if the meat had marked them. 2 months passed. Then one Sunday morning, the bell ringer at St. Jude's Church fainted while climbing the tower. When they revived him, he said, "He's back, Daniel. He's in the church." People rushed in with sticks and cutlasses, but found nothing. Yet, on the pulpit, someone had carved a message with a knife. "You ate and you loved it. Now I am part of you." From that day, villagers said they heard footsteps at night. Meat began to rot within minutes of cutting it. Firewood wouldn't light if you tried to cook soup. Some said Daniel's spirit was walking from house to house, collecting payment for what they had eaten. Fear gripped the whole village like a hand from the grave. The elders went to consult a powerful Dibia native spiritualist who lived in a cave near the Oji River. He listened to the story silently, then said something that chilled everyone. "Daniel was not born like you and me. He was chosen by something old, something that feeds on forgotten people. He came to your village to feed you meat that carried sorrow, and now sorrow has entered you all." The chief asked, "What can we do?" The Dibia replied, "You cannot send him away. You must call him back and beg." "Beg who?" the chief asked again. "Not Daniel, the one who gave him the knife." The Dibia gave the villagers instructions. "You must not sleep on the 7th night," he said. "Every home that ate Daniel's meat must keep their windows open. At midnight you will hear a knock. Do not open, do not answer, just kneel, and whatever you hear, do not scream." Nobody understood it, but fear had already broken their pride. They obeyed. The 7th night came like thunder rolling through the sky. By 11 p.m., the entire village was in silence. Lanterns off, fires quenched, windows open. People sat on their mats, knees on the ground, holding their children close. Even the dogs were quiet. And then it started, knock, soft. Then again, from another house. Knock, knock! It moved from hut to hut. In some homes, it sounded like a slap. In others, like something dragging metal along wood. Nobody opened, but people heard things. I heard a baby crying outside. said one woman. "I heard my dead mother calling me," said another. "I heard the meat boiling by itself in the pot, but there was no pot." By dawn, 9 families had burnt marks on their doors, and one family the Aziz was missing entirely. The door was open, the mat empty, food untouched, gone, just like that. 2 days later, the new butcher who tried to open shop in the market ran away crying. He had only just placed his table when he saw something beneath it. A white sack tied with red thread. Inside, a small wooden box. Inside the box was a tiny piece of meat-fresh pink dripping blood. But it wasn't cow. A note was inside, soaked halfway. "You can try to take my place, but can you pay the price?" The man dropped everything and ran, barefoot, without looking back. No butcher dared open a stall again. The meat section of the market rotted. The village began to survive on yam, plantain, and water. But hunger doesn't keep quiet for long. As weeks turned into months, the fear began to mix with hunger. Some villagers started to say things like, "The meat was sweet, a beg. We didn't die before. Why now?" At least there was food. Quietly, without saying too much, people began to miss Daniel. They missed the softness, the ease, the way the meat made them sleep like babies. Some swore they could smell it sometimes, in their dreams. Others said they heard him, Daniel, whispering recipes in their ears as they cooked yam. One woman, Ndidi, confessed to her sister, "I still have a piece in my freezer. I kept it. I don't know why, but I dream of it. Sometimes I see Daniel smiling." The sister slapped her, but Ndidi smiled and said, "You'll see, he fed us. Nobody else cared." Then one rainy night, a woman from the next village came to Amaif, dragging a sack and crying. She said her name was Chidinma. She had been looking for her brother, who had gone missing 2 years ago after leaving for work in Ogwashi. She heard whispers from a beggar in her town that a butcher in Amaife once sold meat with a birthmark on the thigh. Her brother had that same birthmark. The village tried to push her away. They had buried the story, sealed it, banished it. But Chidinma wouldn't leave. She stayed under the mango tree in the market, crying every night. That was when the dream started again stronger. This time, people saw Daniel holding a golden knife. In the dream, he stood at the edge of the village, near the same spot where he used to sell meat. He would say only one sentence, "The feast has not ended." It happened on a Sunday. A big storm had flooded the main road. Nobody could travel out. The river had swallowed the wooden bridge. The wind blew off 2 roofs and carried the church bell into the forest. That night, the village square caught fire, but not from flames, from light. Red light, soft, low, pulsing like a heartbeat. And in the center of the square stood a full wooden table, covered with meat, fresh, hot, dripping, and beside it, Daniel. He was smiling, wearing his old white shirt, but his eyes now glowed yellow like a cat. His knife hung from his belt, but his hands were open. People came out, one by one, hungry, confused, drawn like moths to a flame. They stood, trembling, and watched him speak without sound. His mouth moved, but what came out wasn't words, it was smell. Sweet, soft, warm, and one woman stepped forward. Ndidi. She took a piece and ate, the first to chew. Then the others followed. The chief, the priest, the teacher, even the women who once spat on his name. They all ate. After they ate, Daniel stood tall and said, "Now the contract is sealed. You will never lack. But every feast has a cost, and the cost is memory." "What do you mean?" the chief asked. Daniel smiled. "You will forget this tomorrow, but every 7 years I will return with meat, and those who remember me will guide the new ones." Then the red light burst into the sky like fire. When people woke up the next day, there was no table, no meat, no Daniel, nothing. And nobody remembered anything. Except one person, Obina. Obina had been the one to expose Daniel years ago. But now, everyone around him had forgotten everything. His mother didn't remember the Azias disappearing. The priest denied knowing anything about a freezer. Even the chief said, "We don't eat meat in this village. It has always been like that." Obina tried to scream, shout, remind them, but nobody believed him. He alone remembered the dreams, the meat, the knocks at midnight. He alone felt the hunger return, deeper than food, a craving for something raw. He began to draw Daniel's knife in the sand. He began to hear whispers when he passed the old cemetery. And one day, he woke up and found something under his bed. A white sack, red thread, and a note. "It is your turn to feed them." Obina stared at the white sack under his bed. His hands trembled as he untied the red thread. Inside was a smaller cloth parcel, still wet with something dark and sticky. He opened it carefully. It was a piece of thigh. Soft, still warm. The smell hit him like a slap. His stomach growled violently. He hadn't eaten meat in months, not since the last festival, at least not that he remembered. But now, something inside him stirred, like a snake uncoiling. "Feed them," the voice whispered, "just once." He grabbed the meat and threw it into the bush behind his house. That night, he heard footsteps in his compound, then a whisper through the window. "You are wasting our gift." Obina couldn't sleep. He began to sweat during the day and shake at night. He kept hearing knives being sharpened in his dreams. He even started walking to the abandoned market stall where Daniel used to sell meat, just to stand there and breathe in the wind. One afternoon, he went to the stream to wash his face. That's when he saw it. A mark on his chest, like a burn butt shaped like a knife. The same curved knife Daniel once used. He ran to the Dibia's cave, trembling, but found only a note on the ground. The one who exposes the feast must one day serve it. Obina screamed. He begged, but the trees only echoed with soft laughter. A week passed. Then Obina disappeared. His mother cried to the chief, "I haven't seen my son for days." But the chief only laughed and said, "Obina! Who is Obina?" Even his name was being erased. That was when a strange smell began to float through Amaif again. Familiar, sweet, warm. And one morning, a small wooden table appeared in the village square. Covered with fresh meat, the villagers gathered, confused but curious. "Who brought this?" someone asked. "Was there a festival?" another whispered. A voice behind them replied, "He did." They turned and saw a young man in white. his eyes yellow, his chest glowing faintly with a knife mark. It was Obinna, only he no longer looked afraid. He smiled, just like Daniel once did. "Eat," he said. "You will never hunger again." And they did. 7 years later, Amefe was the most peaceful village in the region. There was always food, no sickness, no beggars, no suffering. Children grew fat, elders danced in the moonlight. Strangers came from nearby towns to eat their famous stew, but they were never told what was inside. They only knew it was soft and tender and unforgettable. At night, the villagers gathered in secret to kneel before the wooden table. They ate without question. They laughed without guilt. And deep inside the forest, a shrine glowed. Inside it, a man sat carving new names into a black. He smiled, humming the same tune Daniel once sang. He dipped a quill into blood and wrote. The hunger was never the problem. The forgetting was.